All right. It's my great pleasure to introduce Fred Yost, who is our speaker tonight on handmade paper making for artistic purposes. Fred spent nearly 3 decades at Sandia National Labs, and he started his second career after that as an artist, although he has been making art from the very beginning. Tonight he's going to take us on a journey from early writing surfaces like wood, clay, and papyrus, through the origins of paper in ancient China, and into the development of more modern techniques. And he's going to share his experience of building a paper mill and how that process informs his work across painting, printmaking, calligraphy, and bookmaking. Help me welcome Fred Yost.
Thank you, Jamie. And I thank the board for inviting me to give another talk here. I also thank Nicholas for being such an expert in audiovisual equipment and putting things on YouTube. A while back, I discovered that some of my things are on YouTube because I jokingly spoke my name while I'm on YouTube, and up comes these videos. So this one will be there too. I did do 2 talks here when Buffy was the director, and this is my second talk since Jamie took over the directorship. And it's been a joy to do this because all of this papermaking occurred to me back in the 80s. I got interested in it, and I just dove in and did it in all my extra time, which wasn't very often, but every day I had a little bit of time. And it was fun for me to go back, 4 decades, to review all of that and remember what I did back then. So it was fun. So I guess I'll begin, Nicholas. Okay, it's up to me to push the right buttons.
Right, the left, right arrow. There you go.
And so I planned a short introduction, and then talk about early technology, meaning like China, etc., and talk about my paper mill, how I built it. You'll see what it looks like, and various applications, various ways of using paper in the arts. And Jamie made mention of that, and now I'll have some time to hope for Q&A. So I dearly hope to God that you guys will enjoy the talk and will derive something that might inspire you to do your own work. So here we go. The earliest, of course, papermaker was the wasp, the paper wasp. And what he did was find organic material, including wood and plants, and chew it up, just masticate it, chew it up, combine it with his saliva, and then use it to make these perfectly hexagonal cells into which the queen of his colony laid her eggs, one into each hexagonal cell. And can you all hear me? We have a microscope, and I can get really close to it if I have to. And it was the hexagonal structure is so perfect, and it turns out that it's also the most efficient way of using material in a space. It's just very efficient, and it'd have to be something like that for a wasp who's making his own paper pulp, chewing it up. It also happens to be the strongest geometry, once it gets dry, of course. So the wasp is really an interesting insect.
Do they still do?
Oh yeah, they do it every day for, millions of years. Papyrus is there are other things that people have done through the years. I could have talked about clay tablets, cuneiform, and wax tablets from Italy and Greece. So, and bones, you could, people have written on bones for 12,000 years in China. And they also had a category of bones that were written on with language, their own language, that wrote down laws, for example, Code of Hammurabi, and literature like the Epic of Gilgamesh. I don't know if you know about Gilgamesh. He suggested that the Lord told him to build a boat because there's going to be a big flood. Well, he just happened to be somebody else in the whole race for that story. But it was published nevertheless. Anyway, papyrus is grown on the Nile in Egypt, and it looks very much like rhubarb. But it's much, much taller. It's a real tall plant, so that makes it useful for making paper. You get a whole lot of pulp out of one stalk, for example. And they peel it off and get to the inner part of it and flatten it out and make arrangements.
What was the name of that plant again?
Papyrus?
Well, that's the name of the plant?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Papyrus, and also the name of the resulting paper. And they would make layers of strips of papyrus that were flattened and then squashed. They'd put a load on that combined group of papyrus parts. And the natural glue in the plant itself glued all those layers together to make a very hard and very strong piece of paper that was written on. The Gutenberg Bible signaled back in like the 1400s that if we're going to keep making books like this, we need a whole lot of paper. And paper wasn't made that frequently. And so the technology evolved, mostly in Europe, to make the process much faster to do. And I saw an example of the Gutenberg Bible in the J. Pierpont Morgan in Manhattan many years ago. It's quite a sight. And I think there are only 180 Bibles made in this way by Gutenberg in Mainz, Germany, and something like only 80 are left. The real paper that we know was born in China, in the Liang province of China, and then migrated east through Europe, to Europe. And the paper mill that I'd like to draw your attention to, which you can hardly read in that drawing, is Fabriano. If you're an artist, you probably have run across Fabriano paper. It was established as a paper mill in 1276 in Italy on the Gianni River, the banks of the Gianni River in Italy. And I so happen to have a piece of that paper. This happens to be a version of their paper called Roma, Fabriano Roma. And it's really, really useful for calligraphy. That's what I was doing back in the 70s and 80s. And there's a piece of my calligraphy over there that is in, you'll see it on an image in the talk, but you'll also be able to look at the actual piece. This isn't the total the size of the sheet. I have snipped it out of a bigger piece. But I think, yeah, there's a deckled edge right here that you can see if you want to pick this up. Put this over there, please. This is my assistant, Vanna White. It was invented by this guy, Tsai Lun, sometimes pronounced Kai Lun, in 105 AD. And when I was walking around in China one day, I bumped into him. He's a really cordial guy, very friendly. Invited me in for a cup of tea, and he invited me to tour his facility, his factory. So here we are in his factory, and he happens to have inner bark from a mulberry tree. This stuff makes really, really beautiful paper, very strong paper. And here he was preparing that paper. Paper comes from vegetable fibers, and you have to somehow cook it to get rid of lignin, which is what comes with trees in paper, in newspaper. And it's the lignin that acts as an acid and turns the paper dark as it ages. So you have to boil it to get it softened up and wash it off once you get it all soft. And then in his days, and in later days, in Europe, you have to bang on the paper, beat it all up into pieces, into fibers, and then put it in a bath so that you can make paper. And we'll get to that sort of stuff.
That automatically takes the lignin out of it?
The cooking in a sodium type of compound, type of bath,
Yeah.
basic,
Alkaline.
alkaline bath, which you then wash, you rinse, wash, and if you're worried about it, you might even neutralize it to get rid of the basic remnants. Here he is making a sheet of paper. In later years, the Europeans decided to engineer a way to make it faster so that they could make books. This poor guy is turning a wheel that makes these stampers go up and down, beating the heck out of the fibers that are in the bucket there, in the depression. Well, that's a hard job. So later years, they found ways of using rivers and windmills to provide that power that could grind up all of the vegetable fiber. And also, this is by a river, and the river causes all of these stampers to go up and down and smash that stuff. And then you put the resulting hammered material into water in a vat and stir it all up, and you get a molten decal like that man is using. And this is a molten decal that I made like 4 decades ago, and it's been in the weather ever since, so it's not very handsome. And this is just screen wire, and I don't know what possessed me, but I found this kind of stuff. But this hexagonal or this squarish matrix isn't necessary. The wire is enough to hold up the water-soaked paper. And then this is the so-called decal. And here's the secret about the decal. People try to simulate a decal by tearing. You can get a tool that tears it randomly. But the way a decal is formed is you take the decal and turn it upside down and then chamfer the inner edge all the way around. You chamfer it. And then when the paper is placed on the mold, it can leak under into that chamfer. And that forms the so-called decal. That's the only way a real decal is formed.
The decal. I don't understand what the decal is.
The decal is more or less a dam. It keeps the paper contained within this space.
Mm-hmm.
And you can modify by if you want to create a template, you can lay the template on the mold, covered up with the decal, and then paper will only go onto the mold where the template reveals the mold. And you can come up with a pattern. I'll show you some of that.
And the deckled edge is when you have that kind of a rough edge on the.
Right.
Right. You were talking about that on that piece of Fabriano paper.
Yeah, you can hardly see it, so they didn't have a very good chamfer on that piece. I should say something about that paper too. When I was using it back in the 70s, it cost me $5 a sheet, which I thought was a pretty expensive piece of paper that I'm going to write on. So I wanted to get a current price. So I called Artisan, and they said, well, we don't handle it anymore. So I called the Artisan in Santa Fe. We don't handle it anymore. And I asked the Artisan in Albuquerque, can you get me a price on one sheet? And they said, $25.
Holy gee. How big is that sheet?
Pardon?
How big is the sheet?
It's 22 by 30, I believe.
For what, 25 bucks?
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, that's the price they gave me. I know that sometime in the past, I did pay as much as $10 or $15. It was increasing in value. So here's that man. He's standing by that tub, and he's pulling a molten decal out, forming the first layer of paper. And then he hands it to the so-called couturier, who takes the decal off and carefully turns the mold over so that the wet paper is hanging on by capillarity to that screen, and then carefully rolls it onto a fabric. The fabric they used mostly, even today, is felt. And felt is one of the, if not the oldest fabric known to man, it is one of the oldest. And you can use any kind of fiber or fabric. So this one shows the vat man, the couturier, but it also shows the press. And the press man isn't in this picture, but he stands by the press and he takes a pile of recently pulled sheets of paper separated by paper felt. He sets it into his press and squishes it down, and out comes all the excess water, most of the water. It's still, the paper's still damp, but it's squashed, and it has maybe 5%, 10% water still. So from there, it's hauled to some room where they can put it on a clothesline of sorts. Take the fabric off, carefully peel off the paper pulp and hang it on the clothesline, some sort of way of drying it. In China and in Japan, they used to put it onto a big sheet of some kind of wood or some kind of flat surface and let it dry in the sun. So then it goes to another room. It's the inspection area of the factory, and women are picking out the good sheets and throwing away the bad sheets, or actually putting the old sheets back into a place where they can reuse it and reconstitute the pulp aspect of it. They also pick out the good ones and the bad ones and make sure it's flat. If the customer wants it even flatter, there's a calendaring process. It's called calendaring, which is used in the fabric industry and also in the paper industry, where it flattens it even more. It makes a smoother surface, make a more complex, condensed sheet. And then it goes to the showroom, and see, there's the Hoss, the big boss of the company. He's talking to a customer, and it looks like the customer's arguing with him, trying to get a lower price or something. I don't know. And the boss man is saying, "Hey, buddy, this is the way this deal's going down." So he's the boss.
$25 or so.
Yeah, 25 bucks. Okay, a lot of those images came from this book called Papermaking. The current library here, which is a fabulous library, I bet it's the best art library in the state. I'm going to donate this book to the Art League so that you guys can pick up this book. It's really well illustrated. There are examples of paper that have been made in a very artistic way. It shows, and here is a picture of a fellow named Jim Yarnell. He was, I'll get the slide up to talk about him rather than show it in the book. I called him, I found him in the book there, that he makes a beater. In Europe, years ago, they used what is called a Hollander beater. Guess where it was built? It was in the Netherlands. And it was a horizontal deal where they had the beater here, and the pulp and water would flow around and go under the beater and go around and go under the beater, so it would eventually get all chopped up. But he made one that's vertical. And so I called him and said, "Man, I bought one of your beaters." And he said, "Sure." And he actually drove it out here from Topeka, Kansas, where he worked for Cessna Corporation. And I think I paid $350 for the beater. And I still have it.
Wow.
There's the beater. The pulp is down in the right-hand side. It goes under that gear-looking thing, which rubs against a bed plate, doing all the slicing and dicing.
Was this his invention? Did he invent this type of beater?
Yeah, he's the first one to make a horizontal one.
I see.
But the whole idea is real old. And you can make a lot of pulp in this way. And I wanted one because I wanted to make paper out of other stuff. He made paper out of dungarees. In the old days, people made lots of paper out of clothes, old clothes. I wanted to make paper out of cactus and all sorts of stuff. And I also made paper out of asparagus, which was fun because, people take asparagus and they bust it, and they use the top, and they throw away the butt.
There's the woody part.
Yeah. But that woody part is full of fiber.
Oh,
That's why it gets thrown away.
Well, thank God, because I could make paper out of it, and I did. I don't have a sample here to show you, but it makes a very fragile paper. But I think if I worked on it for a while, I could find a way to make it more useful than it actually was. It was also subject to changing color because of the sun, but it was fun to do. I'll get to it first. Yeah, mold and decal types. This is the kind I made, the wove mold. Really fancy. The Fabriano Roma paper was made with a lathe mold kind of geometry. And here's a timeline of papermaking in the USA. Right down at the bottom is Albuquerque, 1981. But I must admit there were at least three people making paper before I came along. So they were the guys I learned it from. And at least 2 of the 3 are passed on. There's my paper mill. On the left is, I'm not talking about the plastic bucket. I don't remember what the heck I did with that. But the constructed tub was 1x12 pine, all joined together, sitting on a piece of plywood. And then I sealed the inside so it wouldn't leak. And it worked great. I still have one like it. And then sitting on the tub is a slanted thing called the ass board. Don't blame me, I didn't call it the ass board. But I'll show you how it's used. And then next to that on the right is the couching table. You'll see that curve. That's a piece of thin, probably masonite, I forget what it is, covered by a piece of paper, fabric. And a piece of felt is hanging right front of it, and I'll show you how that couching table is used. Next to that is a table that you would use to make a pile of paper, felt, paper, felt, paper, felt. And then when it got thick enough, you could take that whole composite and put it into the press. I made the press using angle iron that I got from a scrap yard and welded it together and got two nice aluminum plates to do the squishing. And I went to an auto store and bought a jack, a hydraulic jack. Like I could pump it up and get the pressure so that the paper is squished. After that, you can hang it on the clothesline. You can brayer it onto a piece of masonite, stick it out in the sun, and it dry, and you'll be able to pull it off. So, I mean, you could probably do this more elaborately or more in a more simpler way, but that's what I ended up with. Here's a Batman pulling out a brand new piece of paper, letting it drain. Here's the coucher, and that's the molds and the paper with the decal removed. And that paper is sopping wet, but it's being held by capillarity to the wire, to the screen. And here's the couching process. Couching, I think in French, means kiss, to kiss. They say couching. We would say couch, which doesn't have anything to do with kissing. Well, perhaps it does. And so you get this curved surface, which helps you transfer paper to the felt. And you do it in a slow, you turn the mold and over with the paper pulp, and you gently put it down on the felt, and then you sort of roll it off while pushing and getting that paper transferred over to the fabric. It works really well. The first time you do it, it'll work. And then you put another sheet of paper fabric over that, or felt. In this instance, I was using Pellin. You probably know what Pellin is. It's a beautiful fabric that's used for making shirts, and it's also smooth. It gives you a smoother surface on the paper than does felt. You know, you get problems when you do this outside. You get the wind that can blow the paper away, and you get bugs. And so you have to find a way to get rid of bugs. But a lot of smarter people do things indoors. You know, I did it in my backyard. Okay, I pushed the wrong button.
What if you had something back there that kind of attracted the bugs to something more
Yeah, sure.
favorable than your paper?
Yeah, you can do that. Fortunately, it didn't happen that often, but it's just a precaution. Down at the bottom, you can see a bucket. I used to buy pulp, and very different kinds of pulp available at a place called Twin Rocker in Indiana. And they'll sell you a bucket load like that for something like $60. And you can choose cotton for various purposes, like you can get cotton for casting purposes, cotton for sheet formation. You can get linen, you can get pure linen, you can get a mixture of linen and cotton, you can get banana leaf paper, and other ones. And they have these available, already formed in sheet form, and in various sizes, and you just call them up or go to their website and order what you want. So that's convenient, and I did that just a little while ago because I wanted to make a paper casting for the show out there. This is my very first art piece. It's a piece of banana leaf paper, and it's 18 by 24, and it's pastel. And it's nothing but colored spheres and book bindings, the back end of a book binding.
Does it have a texture that helps to hold the pastel?
Oh, all paper does.
Okay.
All paper. With variations. You can get really rough paper, and you can get smooth paper. Or you can make it intentionally rough like Paul Murray does by adding some pumice and whatnot to the stuff that you put on your paper. You can also emboss the paper. You need a press of some kind or some weights and some plates that will hold it and you weigh it down. I did it sheet by sheet using a press. And so you can get a pattern put into the paper after it's been made and still moist, or maybe even to be wet. And it'll take on the shape of whatever it is you. This happens to be a construction I made using mat board pieces. Made slats of mat board and weaved them together. So it gave me a pattern that I pressed into the paper and then painted on top of that. The semic writing through the middle is done with a janting, a wax tool that you can squirt wax out of. This is the runic alphabet I embossed. I cut out the letters of the runic alphabet from mat board and then did them on the paper and pressed it. I have to show you this poem because the next piece I did has to do with this poem. The poem is by Robert Frost. This is Nothing Gold Can Stay. And I won't bother reading it, but the last line is nothing gold can stay. And so I wanted to argue with Mr. Frost because I found a way to make it stay. And what I did was take a flower. It comes in a bush. Little flowers about this big. Starts with the letter M. I'm sorry, I'm forgetful. It's that time of my age that it happens. Anyway, I took the flower and the seeds and all. I made a lot of them. Put them in a bucket with water and then ground it up in my beater. Seeds and all. And I produced these little bacon-like pieces of paper onto which I lettered that poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay. And I added some gold leaf, but the color of the plant, the flower, is rather golden once you make it go through this process. Marigold. Marigold, sorry. And it makes a beautiful looking piece of paper. It's not very useful because it's fragile and it's rough. But you can see you can letter on it. You can add other materials. What's the college out in western New Mexico? No, farther out.
Sounds like.
Water.
No, never mind. So I got these reeds. Anyway, I brought that up because I was accepted into a show out there at the university, which I can't remember the name of. And I got these reeds, and I used a template. I told you about a template that you can make a pattern out of the paper. You can create a pattern in the freshly made paper. And so I made this template, made the first sheet of paper, then I laid down the reeds and made another sheet of paper that same size and put that on top of, made a sandwich out of all that. Mm-hmm. And then I pressed it out and dried it. And I could write on it. So I purposely designed a building that looked kind of oriental, and because I wanted to do some Chinese-inspired letters, but letters that we use. And it's sold at the show, so one of the few that were sold. And so I came home and I decided I want to make another one of those. So this is the one I still have. Is my second version of this. It never sold. Here's another one. This has to do with a song from Acoma Pueblo called Flower Song.
Silver City? Is that Silver City?
Acoma.
Okay.
Not even close.
I was talking about the university.
No.
Okay.
North of there.
Okay.
It's on I-40.
It's on what?
I-40, and there's a major
It's
university.
on I-40 you're talking about.
Yes, and it's a major university. Okay. So this is a song that I just used. And you can do photography. You make your paper, and you get platinum emulsion for making photographs. You brush it on your paper in a dark room, let it dry. Get your negative, put it over that and expose it in UV light. Then you take the negative away and you develop it in a potassium oxalate solution. I went to a workshop up just south of Taos on the river there. They have workshops and whatnot. And I learned how to do that process. And I didn't do it very often. I did manage to make this one piece and just a couple more. You can do paper casting. This is my version of Taos Pueblo with a short poem that I wrote. This is Acoma Pueblo with writing that is from Acoma. Also paper casting. Okay. Now, somewhere along the line, probably around 1983 or so, I learned that there were like 3 paper mills in Manhattan. So I purposely went out there and I wanted to tour them. And one of them was called Dieudonné. Anybody who knows French can tell me what that means. I don't know what Dieudonné means. But there was a company there. It's now since moved to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, where they had more room. This is on the 3rd floor of a big building. And so I wanted to go there, and I got to the door, and there was a button. So I pushed the button. It was a buzzer. And someone peeked out of the window on the 3rd floor saying, "What do you want?" I said, "I'd like to see your paper mill." So they would buzz the button again, and it opened the door, and I went up there. I was surprised. It was a fairly big place, several people doing various tasks on paper making, and they sell it. They're still in business out of Brooklyn, Brooklyn Navy Yard. But I also wanted to see this guy. He made paper that was curved. And the way he did it was to spray it. Louis Lieberman. He was in a 5-story walk-up. Good thing I was half my age back then, because I was able to walk up five flights. He was spraying paper pulp onto a plaster surface. So you can make a plaster surface anyway, whatever you want, you can make it. And so that's what he was doing, and I asked him how did he manage to build this sprayer. He said, all you have to do is drill out the hole, the hole that the paper comes out of, and it works.
You mean in a paint sprayer or something?
Yeah.
Drill a bigger hole?
Yeah. That's what he said. I haven't tried it.
So when you spray that on a plastic surface,
Plaster surface.
what will plaster?
Plaster.
Oh, okay.
So it sucks up any water. It dries right on the mold.
Okay.
Sometimes it falls
leave
off.
the paper there.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
until it dries.
Well, I mean, do you remove it or you?
Yeah, and when it dries,
Okay.
it loosens up from the plaster.
Okay.
And you can just peel it the rest of the way off, or sometimes it even dries and it falls on the floor.
And it retains the form that if you...
Yes, maintains the shape of the mold.
Yeah.
So just the paper itself, combined with some charcoal, gives you the final piece of work.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you can do all sorts of other things too, but I never had the energy to get a paper sprayer, drill it out, and hope that it will work.
Mm-hmm.
You can also, while the paper is in the vat, you can take oil-based stain, pour it in there, and it floats on the top, and then you can pull the sheet of paper on it, and that stain becomes part of the paper.
Uh-huh.
And it had such a color, I thought, this is ideal for figure drawing. That's where this was developed. Woodblock prints. This is the woodblock that I used to make that print of Walt Whitman. I call it Whitman's Gaze. But I used to be able to buy redwood, 12 inches wide. I don't know where you can get that anymore. But if you look at this board, you'll see Whitman's image carved into the wood. And to make the hair, I just used a nail. So when you really want to do something, you'll find some way to do it.
Goodness.
I also did one of, I'll show you. George O'Keeffe.
That's cool.
This was done with a similar kind of wood, 12 inches wide, on my own paper. You can make ancient-looking documents. Here's the way I did it. I probably wouldn't do it today, but I did then. There was a store on Wyoming, south of Central, that sold chemicals. I don't remember the name of it, and it's long since gone. I bought a quart of nitric acid.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, that makes paper molds really fast. Just dunk it in there, maybe a minute or two, and take it, wearing gloves. You can take it back out and put it into a bath of water. And if you were worried about it maintaining its acid nature, you can neutralize it. But I just washed it off. And it had a beautiful old-looking look to it. So I learned how to do Hebrew letters, and I did the Hebrew alphabet, and it sold right away.
Wow.
You can make books. I've made several books, and this, not this one, but one of the books that I did many times was what I call a gift book. On the front page, I put, thank you. The rest of the book is blank. And I'd give that to someone as a gift. And that person could write in someone's name, right under where it says, thank you. And they can then give it as a gift. And to someone who might want to put something in the rest of the book. So if you really get into this, you can make a mold in dirt and pour paper pulp into that mold. That's what you get. And you can put it into this really wonderful looking frame. This is a really fine piece of work, this frame. And you can display it in the local gallery. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for listening. If you have questions, I'll try to answer.
I'd like to know about the felt.
Felt.
Yeah, is it industrial felt you're using?
Yes,
Is it white or the natural gray?
it was that red.
It's red.
Yeah,
And it doesn't, the dyes don't come back onto
No.
the paper?
no. And I had like 12 pieces of it. It was expensive too. And I was asked to give a workshop in papermaking down in Carlsbad. And I used it, I did it in the library down there. There was a space for the workshop. So we set up a papermaking facility at the library. And I had one mold that I took a lot of time making using mahogany. It was really a fine piece of work. The librarian, after the workshop, took my felts and took my beautiful mold and decal and disappeared. So I never got the felts back, but I continued making paper using Pellin and whatever fabric I could get. Nobody else.
And how did you know that nitric acid was going to make the paper look old?
Nitric acid will make anything look old. I've had experience with various acids in my job, and nitric is especially vicious.
I see.
There's another one called perchloric acid that it can explode.
Really?
If you shock it, it'll explode and do some real serious facial damage. Fortunately, I was using perchloric acid when I was a graduate student, but it didn't explode on me, so I got wise and I stopped using it.
Whoa.
How about, have you ever tried black coffee? Just,
No.
it's probably safer than acid, but,
Yeah.
I saw someone who used to age his canvas paintings that way.
Yeah.
Pouring black
Sure.
coffee on it.
Yeah, watercolorists, I'm sure, do it. They use it to get some sort of texture, some sort of background. Anybody else?
Fred, do you have anything to say about your pieces that are in this current show, Works One Paper?
Well, there's a casting, and that piece I used. I was talking to Dave about work that I've done recently. I used drywall compound, which is a lot like plaster. You can get it at Home Depot. It's so nice to work with. You can put it on a surface. I used masonite-like stuff, but I glued a piece of fabric on it all the way around. So I'm joining this drywall compound to fabric, not to masonite, because I would worry that the stuff would come off of masonite. But it sinks into fabric. So I poured it all on there. You can scoop it out of a cup that you buy it in, and then smooth it out, carve it when it dries, add more, carve it, sand it, until I got the shape of a nude woman, carefully posed. And I did that for 3 different women, and I gave them names of Greek goddesses, Athene, and I forget the other ones. But I chose one of those to make a plaster mold of. So I took it out of the frame that I had it in and made a plaster mold, because that's what I need to make a paper casting. So then I took it out of the plaster mold and put my paper pulp into that mold. And it comes out paper having the same shape as the one that I carved. And I did it for the show. Another piece I have in the show, I used an old Albuquerque Journal newspaper. It happens to be a paper that was published on September 19th, 1941. And there's another story of how I got that, but I glued that to a board and then added other collage stuff, including letters that were stamped on a steel sheet.
The lignin probably turned it pretty brown. 41.
Yeah, it's pretty. You can see it out there. Well, I'll tell you the story. There used to be a store on East Central that had nothing but old newspapers and magazines, old maps, old postcards in boxes. I mean, they weren't even displayed. You have to sort of fumble your way through it all. They went out of business a long time ago, but I managed to buy a whole box full of stuff, magazines and newspapers, for $50.
Wow.
And so I've been using that stuff ever since. Newspaper and magazine pieces for collage and whatever. And so that piece has the date on it, and it has the Albuquerque Journal headline. But just by chance, and I didn't know this until I made this piece, my last name is part of an article that was included on the front page of this. And it talks about somebody that was fast or something like that. Anyway, I was surprised, and I thought, well, I got to make something out of this. And what else did I do?
The
Amy?
pandas, the daddy.
Oh, yeah, the pandas. Jackie and I are in a group called Scribes 8. We've been doing it for 35 years. We meet once or twice a year. In the early days, we met twice. Now we're only meeting once a year because people live all around now. One guy's in Roswell, one guy's Cruces. Our best artist is in Cleveland. He used to work for Albuquerque. American Greetings. I used to be able to go into a greeting card store and I would recognize his work. And everybody has a style that you recognize after a while. And I'd walk by his stuff and I'd say, "Hi, Mike." So anyway, we had a show, the group of us, that had to do with animals and how they talk to one another, how they communicate. And it's interesting how animals do this in so many different ways. Ants, for example, leave a stink that people smell, and they know the sex and what society this guy belongs to. It's so interesting. You could read it forever and not get bored. Other people did, buffaloes, fish, and all sorts of animals that actually have ways of communicating. Anything else?
I have a question about your woodcut, because the wood grain is not very deep.
Right.
So, you made this with some of your handmade paper. I mean, you printed them to some of
Yes.
your handmade paper.
Yes.
How did you wipe that board so that it wouldn't go into the recesses?
Oh, I wanted to go wherever I wanted to go. Of course, it didn't go into any place that I carved.
Right, but it also didn't go into.
It also shows, you can also see the grain in the print.
Yeah, which is lovely.
And, well, I didn't do anything. I just printed. I just rolled it out like you would. And, you don't use a very thick coating so it can't, glurp down into the grain. In fact, I might have even took some sandpaper to accentuate the grain. I liked that. But it made a beautiful print, and so I did another one with Georgia O'Keeffe. I tried to do other ones. I carved one for a black band leader, Duke Ellington. And I liked the carving, but the print wasn't very spectacular. I think I did one more, but I don't remember what it was. I like to experiment. I mean, I don't want to get into a rut as an artist and do the same damn thing time and time again. That's what the gallery wants, because that's what the collectors want. But I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do. If I'm not in the gallery, fine.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had a career, and I retired.
Yeah.
And so that gave me the ability to say, screw it, I'm not going to do what they want me to do.
We appreciate all of your experimenting and that you shared with us.
Thank you.
Very much.
I was hesitant to bring this up because I was worried that it might not work out well. Every speaker has some emotional problems when they volunteer to give a talk. Well, I want to tell you that this one went well. I'm happy with the crowd. I'm happy with what I did, although I have some memory issues. But I have another talk.
Okay.
It's about creativity.
Okay.
And so when the time comes, just let me know.
A lot of people in this community would be very interested in.
It should get
talking about
a big
that
crowd.
subject. Yeah.
The last talk I gave here that Jamie and the board asked me to do was the relationship between mathematics and art. In my career, I happened to get involved in mathematics in a deep, deep way. And so I had that background, but I didn't want to do a talk that had all that deepness in it. But there's so many ways in which mathematics affects art and art affects mathematics. It just makes a wonderful topic to talk about. and explore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
You know?
much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.